If you have spent any time in fitness industry, you have probably heard so many times things like avoid volume. Volume is just junk. Pump is never going to take you anywhere. Spend as little time in the gym as possible. Don't get overtrained. But then when we look at the greatest bodybuilders of all times, the golden era bodybuilders, we see a very different story. What they all had in common was actually high volume training. If you look at Arnold, we see that. If you look at Serge Nubret, again the same story. Then Sergio Oliva, everybody you look at, Frank Zane, Albert Beckles, absolute legends of golden era. And what they had in common, exactly opposite than modern advice. They all trained high volume. Not one set, not two sets, not one set to failure per exercise, but 20, 30, 40 sets per muscle group per session. And I have also tried with fantastic results. I competed, I won shows, I changed dramatically when I switched from heavy duty to high volume training. And not just me. And I've been in bodybuilding for over 40 years, and I've trained over 3,500 clients, and they all change actually by using exclusively high volume training. And the reason that I have recently wrote an entire book called High Volume Training is that I believe that high volume training is the most misunderstood principle in bodybuilding. Now, the question that people usually ask me immediately after listening to my high volume training videos is, oh, but there is no way that I can do 30 sets per muscle group. Of course you cannot. And that doesn't mean that once you understand what high volume training is and what are the benefits of high volume training, you should immediately jump into 30, 40 sets per muscle group. Because this is not going to happen. I'm talking about the principles. And once you implement them, you will eventually start increasing your number of sets as you start progressing. So when I give principles, they are the targets, but they're not the recipe. So there is no way that you should immediately do 30 or 40 sets. It will take some time. It may take years to get there. But this should be your principle, not to go for 4 or 5 sets per muscle group with some extraordinary high-intensity fantasy, get injured and simply overstress yourself beyond belief, but to start performing this type of training, which has actually proven so many times in countless numbers of very successful bodybuilders, actually greatest bodybuilders of all times. And if high volume training is so ineffective as so many today want to present and want to delude you into some heavy duty nonsense, then how is possible that all these golden era legends actually train like that? And not just them, almost everybody in 80s, in 90s, even now is training high volume training. Just look around. If you see a professional bodybuilder, see what they do, and you will understand that nobody is doing just few sets per exercise, 6, 7, 8 sets per muscle group. This simply does not exist. And even if it does, it's so rare that is absolutely not a rule, is an exception. Today I want to explain why high volume training works, not because it's fashionable, not because it's trendy, but simply because it offers number of physiological advantages that many people completely overlook. And at the end of this video, you will understand why high training can build muscle, improve conditioning, help you lose fat, protect your joints, preserve your nervous system, and potentially allow you to make progress for decades. So let us begin. So the first benefit is that high volume training offers you more complete muscle growth. The first reason high volume training works is because it stimulates more complete muscular development. And many people today think that muscle growth is only about getting stronger. So you get stronger, you get bigger, and strength matters. And this is why so many people are actually training more like powerlifters today, hoping they will get bigger because they first need to get stronger. But this is absolutely not the case. And the gyms are full of people who are lifting some huge weights, but they look really sad. They look far away from what they have expected. Now, there are two major components of muscle growth. A lot of people don't understand that. So the first is myofibrillar hypertrophy. This actually reflects the growth of contractile filaments inside the muscle. The second growth refers to sarcoplasmic growth. And sarcoplasmic growth is actually growth of the sarcoplasm, of the volume of the cell. So everything that we find within the volume, including glycogen, cellular fluid, enzymes, mitochondria, and energy-producing structures within the muscle belong to sarcoplasmic growth. So the biggest muscle often possess both of these growths. So it's not just one or another. And the good thing is that actually high volume training stimulates both these mechanisms. While heavy low volume training stimulates primarily myofibrillar growth, high volume training creates significant mechanical tension while at the same time producing substantial metabolic stress. The result is often much fuller, rounder, more complete muscular appearance. Just look at the bodybuilders in golden era. Look at Arnold, look at Serge Oliva, look at Serge Nubret, look at Albert Beckles. The density of their muscles are simply unmatched in modern bodybuilding. The reason for that is mainly because of the different training strategies that people employed during golden era and also that people are doing today. Now, the benefit number 2 is extremely important for everybody to understand, and this is that high volume is actually not junk volume. So many people think that high volume training is simply junk volume because you can do so many sets. Obviously, that must be light. You just set after set and it's absolute junk without producing any results. But this is not true. Often people say, well, if high volume was so good, why don't we do 100 sets? Why don't we just keep putting extra sets? If you're saying that high volume is very productive, let's just do 100 sets. But obviously they misunderstand the whole concept of high volume. High volume, as I'm advising, and that most of the golden era legends have done, is not junk volume, is not just doing more sets for the sake of doing more sets. If you do every set, as I advise, close to failure, there is no way that you're going to end up doing 100 sets per muscle group. Why? I will explain to you why. If you do number of reps as suggested, let's say 12 for upper body muscles, and you come close to failure, you rest anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds. Very important. You don't rest 5 minutes. You rest 30 to 60 seconds for upper body muscles. And then you do another set. Between 4, 5, 6 sets, you will finish that exercise. Why? Because you will reach the minimum number of reps that I recommend, and this is 8. So let's say first set is 12, second set is 11, third set is 10, fourth set is 9, fifth set is 6. You've done 5 sets and you have dropped under 8. That means that exercise is done. You can't do anything else anymore. You continue with next exercise. And you will see how many of these sets, these high quality sets, meaning high quality reps, you can do. You will end up doing 5 to 6 sets per exercise. Maybe you will end up doing 4 or 5 exercises. So that will end up being anywhere from 20 to 30 sets. And there is no way you can squeeze more sets following the principles and advice that I suggest. And this is how people did it. This is how Arnold did it. This is how Oliva did it. This is how Nubret did it. They didn't just pile countless number of sets for the sake of number of sets. And this is where all these no-sayers, or let me be more precise, people who don't have a clue what they're talking about, whoever they are, regardless of their achievements in bodybuilding, when the subject is high-volume training, talk about this as something like waste of time, junk volume, just pump. Absolute nonsense, not understanding anything about physiology and training methodology. Another question that people ask when the subject becomes high volume training as a junk volume, people are saying, oh, I don't have 3 hours to commit to training every day in the gym in order to do 30 sets. I mean, I do around 30 sets every single session 5 times per week. And my session is never longer than 45 to 50 minutes. How is that possible? I don't train for 3 hours and I hit up to 30 sets. Because every set in average is 20-30 seconds. So if it's 30 seconds and you do 30 sets, this is 900 seconds. We're talking about 15 minutes actual work. If you, 15 minutes, remember that. If you rest 1 minute between the sets, that will be 30 minutes. So you have 15 minutes of actual work and 30 minutes of actual rest, and your session is 45 minutes. So what are you talking about? What 3 hours? What do you do in the gym for 3 hours? So you see, when you don't understand principles, the questions will explain yourself immediately, and it will be clear to whoever your participant in discussion is that you actually doesn't know what you're talking about. Now I'm trying to explain the principles, because once you understand them, you may even put 2 plus 2 together and hopefully conclude that is 4. So the goal of high volume training is to produce enough quality sets that will allow you for full recovery. If, for example, 10 sets produce a certain amount of muscle growth, but 20 sets produce more, why wouldn't you do 20 sets? Now, that doesn't mean that if 20 sets produce enough stimulation for growth, that even if you put 20 junk sets, just in order to complete 40, you will do better. No, you're not going to do better. So we are talking here about high quality reps within high quality sets. And obviously, again, if you use the principles, you will all come to the same results. That this is the best way of training for muscle growth, longevity, and injury prevention. And not just that this is the best way of training the muscle, but obviously the proof that so many legends in bodybuilding continued training like this for the rest of their lives, 30, 40, 50 years after they competed, without any injuries, is obviously telling you how beneficial this type of training is. Just look at Arnold, look at Robbie Robinson, and so many others. In fact, the difference between the productive volume and junk volume is so important that I have actually dedicated the whole chapter in my new book, High Volume Training, because this is one of the most misunderstood concepts in bodybuilding today. Now, the third benefit of high volume training is obviously improve cardiovascular health. Many people think that weight training and cardiovascular fitness are two separate things, but actually they are not. A true high volume training can elevate heart rate continuously for 45 to 90 minutes if you want. Think about Serge Nubret. Short rest periods, 30 to 40 sets per muscle group, constant movement, exercise after exercise, set after set, and the heart is working throughout the entire workout. You have amazing blood circulation, oxygen delivery, capillary density, cardiovascular efficiency. And what happens today when you see so many modern lifters becoming stronger but less fit? By the way, becoming fat most of the time. In that case, yes, weight training, as they do, and cardiovascular fitness have nothing to do with each other. They're two separate universes, miles apart. What I'm talking about, high volume training and cardiovascular fitness are actually one thing. And this is yet another benefit that you will achieve via high volume training. Now, the fourth benefit is something that I think everybody knows, and this is lower injury risk. So you know that most of the injuries in bodybuilding come because of overloading the weights which people use for the sake of lifting them, for whatever reason they want to do that. And injuries are of different types. You have accumulated injuries which happen over time. And for example, when you keep overstressing your biceps tendon, eventually the injury will accumulate to the point that the biceps tendon will be torn at some point. Also, you have instant injuries, which I have seen myself when people attempted to lift some huge weights. They have simply exploded. Their biceps tendon, chest tendons, knees, and I witnessed that myself. I wish I never did, because you never forget it for the rest of your life, seeing somebody collapsing on the floor in agony because of this absolute nonsense approach of heavy duty, or call it whatever you want, with this super intensity, super heavy weights. So high volume training is completely different. Your weights that you're using are not your goal. You're not in the gym in order to lift the weights. You are in the gym in order to use the weight in order to build your muscles. So your weights are the means and your muscles are the ends. Your weights are your tool. They are not the end. They are not the target. So once you understand that difference, you will benefit greatly from yet another great advantage of high volume training. High volume training literally relies mainly on moderate weights with high number of reps, high number of sets, relatively short rest between the sets, and also perfect form. If the weight is too heavy, you will never be able to train in perfect form. So when the weight is just right, not heavy or not light, but again, right, as I said so many times, they're not light weights and heavy weights. They're only right weights. What is right weight for you is very subjective, depending on your fitness level, of your strength, or of your experience. But people always say, oh, but then I need to lower the weights. I mean, if you have to lower the weights in order to do perfect form and advised number of sets and reps, then lower the weights. Who cares about old weights that you have achieved by training your ego? Nobody cares. Your body doesn't care. It's just suffering. So basically, the weights that you use should be just right, so you can perform in perfect form, enough reps and enough sets with necessary minimum of rest between the sets. When you perform high volume workouts in the correct way, as I advise, you will still stress your muscles tremendously, but not overstress your tendons, your joints. And this is particularly important as you age, because many bodybuilders stop progressing because their joints can no longer tolerate heavy weights. And again, high volume training is the only type of training that will actually allow you to continue progressing while reducing injury risk. You need to understand that your muscles can adapt very quickly to the new stress, but tendons, ligaments, joints, they require time. They require much more time in order to strengthen than your muscles. And this is often the main reason of injuries, because your connective tissues cannot strengthen as fast as your muscles. A lot of people ignore this, a lot of people get injured. But now you understand again the benefit of preventing injuries through high volume training. So the next benefit of high volume training is actually preserving your central nervous system, or CNS. And this topic is rarely discussed, and again is very misunderstood. Every time you attempt this maximum lifts, either that be last rep in the set which goes to failure, either the set of 5 reps, 8 reps, or 1 rep, when you are hitting that last maximum rep, your nervous system must recruit an enormous amount of muscle mass. But that process is very demanding, and repeated exposure to maximal loading creates substantial CNS fatigue. Now, the difference with high volume training is that moderate weights performed in the sets which end up before failure actually reduce that neurological stress. Although you still stimulate growth, you still challenge the muscle, your recovery becomes more manageable. And that allows for long-term consistency, which is actually the most important factor in order to build a great physique. Another benefit of high volume training is actually extremely beneficial when it comes to fat loss. What many don't understand is actually that more work you perform, the more energy your body must expend. So every set that you are performing requires ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Every repetition requires fuel. Every workout creates a metabolic demand. High volume training burns more calories during the workout. But this is only the part of the story, because you also expend more energy after the workout. And the reason for that is, first of all, your body needs to build glycogen to replace glycogen. Also, your body needs to repair muscle tissue. It needs to support recovery. And all these processes require calories. And this is yet another reason why so many of these golden era legends stayed lean during the off-season, simply because of the high volume workouts which demanded more energy during workouts and also for repair processes after the workouts. The next benefit is so much better mind-muscle connection when it comes to high volume training. Most people train weights. Most people don't train muscles. And that is a big difference. When you use very heavy weights and you push every set to failure, you end up with a low number of reps. You end up fighting those weights. You end up fighting for survival. You obviously training weights. You're just using your body to lift the weights, which have become the primary goal. And in that scenario, you don't even know which muscle you are training. You're just laboring. You're attempting to lift the weights that the whole body has to get involved in order to move them up or down. So this is the difference. With high volume workouts, with moderate weights, you will be able to train every muscle exactly as every muscle requires to be trained, with full precision, hence very high mind-muscle connection. And that is not going to happen if you're performing, again, some heavy-duty rituals in the gym. High volume training will allow you to feel every muscle, to control every repetition, to learn how to maintain tension, to learn how to isolate muscles more effectively, and over time dramatically improve muscular development. The result is often superior muscle growth. And I have experienced that, all of my clients have experienced that, and the most famous bodybuilders of all times have experienced the same thing. Another benefit is obviously the power of the pump. So often you hear stories, fables that pump doesn't matter. This is just a temporary effect on the muscle. Absolutely wrong. We are not talking about the same pump, obviously. Pump comes as a reward. After you perform near failure, 20 sets per muscle group or 30 sets per muscle group, the pump will come as a reward. The pump will come as a consequence, just to show you that you have actually trained your chest or your back, not just the whole body, in order to fight the weights. And that pump gives you also serious benefits. Number one is increased blood flow, also increased nutrient delivery, cellular hydration, metabolic stress, and high volume training consistently produces powerful pump. Again, not as a target, but as a consequence of highly precise, intelligent mind-muscle connection training. So the last benefit will definitely be long-term sustainability. We have all witnessed so many bodybuilding champions that have been around for a few years and then disappeared. Some of them ended up in wheelchairs, some of them with ripped chest, ripped biceps, triceps, damaged knees, back, etc., etc. Also, on the other side, you see people who are training with high volume, who are still training in their 70s, 80s, 90s, and they're still looking amazing. This is the benefit that can only come from high volume training. And you ask yourself, do you want to be a bodybuilder and train with weights properly for 5-10 years, or maybe for the rest of your life? I have chosen the second option. I advise everybody who comes to me and follows my training programs that bodybuilding is for life, is not just a seasonal, few years experience, or 2 or 3 years competing and then burying it. No, bodybuilding is the most beautiful, healthiest way of life if you know how to do it, if you do it properly. And obviously, high volume training is the best way that will allow you to perform with great success for the rest of your life. So now let me just finalize the whole topic and remind you that high volume training is not about doing more sets for the sake of doing more. It's about creating enough stimulus to maximize muscle growth while preserving energy, protecting joints, improving your cardiovascular fitness, increasing metabolism, enhancing fat loss, and allowing long-term consistency. Obviously, the goal is not exhaustion. The goal is productive work. If you have been afraid of high volume, maybe it's time to reconsider, because the greatest physiques in history of bodybuilding were actually built on one set at a time years of hard work, discipline, and clearly high volume training. And that is the lesson worth remembering. If you enjoyed this video and you would like to learn how to effectively apply the principles of high volume training safely and effectively, I've recently released my new book, High Volume Training. After more than 40 years in bodybuilding, coaching thousands of clients, competing, winning shows, I put everything I've learned about productive volume into this comprehensive guide. Inside the book, you will learn how to increase your volume without overtraining, how to structure your workouts, how many sets and exercises you really need, how to build more muscle while staying healthy and injury-free. And if you're serious about maximizing your results, you will find the link in the description and also in the comments below. And if you have enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, like the video, share the video, send me your comments. Also, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.